Penn State 2012 asks, what do you think is the most important or valuable realistic recruit that Penn State is going after in this cycle? Nate, do you have an outside opinion on this as somebody who follows recruiting but is not in the weeds with it?
Basketball?
Sure. Why don't we go? You answer the basketball, I answer the football.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
That's actually a good idea. I want you to do that now.
So what was the question? Outside chance?
No,
realistic chance.
Realistic chance. The most valuable and important player with a realistic chance.
Realistic chance. I know Devin Royal is the long shot for basketball. You know, he's probably going to be tough, I think, ultimately to get. But Kerry Booth is the no-brainer, realistic, but really good prospect in the class of 2023 that Penn State might be able to land. They have the family connection with Calvin Booth, obviously, is his dad. And just he's an intriguing prospect, and he's really impressed a lot of people this summer. He's 6'10" and shoots threes, right? But can also defend the paint. So, like, that combination is something
you need.
It's super intriguing, right? I mean, I don't know that he is as skilled as, obviously Derek Lively ended up being the best prospect in the country last year. Penn State had a connection there. It didn't work out. Obviously, he's a Duke. But I'm not saying that they're the exact same prospect, but I think they bring some of the same qualities to the table. But as opposed to Lively, which ended up not being realistic. Booth is. And I think that's a guy that they're going to continue.
The ties are a little bit stronger there from a Penn State flavor, right? Like, as much as Lively was, like, from the area, there are deep ties to the basketball program specifically with his dad that make it seem like that is a more realistic chance than a guy who blew up and became a top prospect.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Fair.
So from the football perspective, there's a couple, and it depends on what you mean as far as the most valuable. So Jason Moore is in that conversation. Derek LeBlanc is in that conversation. But most important and valuable, it's such a toss-up because if you miss on – okay, Penn State's defensive line class is good right now. So if you miss on those elite defensive tackles, it's a miss, but you're not losing out at a position. Cam Seldon is a rare athlete. And Penn State needs, rare athletes. But if there's one thing they need more than anything else right now, it's offensive tackles. So getting and developing an elite offensive tackle, I think that it by default has to go to Evan Link because, the guys that are left at that position, Ryan, our coworker, Ryan Snyder, is not optimistic about their chances with Samson Okunlola, a 5-star from Thayer Academy in Connecticut. So the next best options that are realistic, that are close to your program, that seem like it's a serious thing, Evan Link is down to, from all reports, like Stanford and Penn State, or Michigan somewhere in there, but Stanford, Penn State. So getting Evan Link and not losing to Stanford in this situation is incredibly important because that recalibrates your offensive line class. Right now, if I'm building an offensive line class, Jevin Williams has to be a tackle. If you're moving forward and you have Evan Link, maybe he's playing right tackle, maybe he's on the interior with a TBD right tackle, however you want to play that. But you need to have that flexibility. The flexibility of the class before where you had 3 strong interior players and you could find the best match out on the perimeter, that was great. Without Josh Miller, now there's more of an emphasis of he has to be either a true guard or a true tackle. So getting more bodies is important at that position. I think that offensive line class, which is very good and you're not going to miss here, but missing out on another elite tackle would be rough. So I would go ultimately with Evan Link, even though my heart says Cam Seldon because he is bananas athletic. I just don't know anything about him as a player because there's no film, and he played like 5 games. So
can I do my my Manny Diaz education?
Sure.
Corner, defensive end, left tackle, quarterback. Quarterback's not necessary, so any of those 3 positions.
Do you say quarterback?
So his argument was the players getting drafted, right,
Yeah.
the highest, and the players that are the most valuable are the ones who either have the ball in their hands or
Yeah.
play the closest impact to the person with the ball in their hands. And
Yeah.
so he was saying cornerback, corner on
Yeah.
defense, end, right, getting
Yep.
to the quarterback and affecting that.
Yep.
The quarterback himself, right,
Yep.
and left tackle.
Yeah. I mean, that is the hierarchy of needs. That is the hierarchy of needs for football teams.
Maslow.
Yes. So that's important, I guess, for this particular team. If you're talking about the Penn State team going forward, they have had some success at corner, right? So you have a reasonable level of expectation that they're going to be good at that position.
Yeah.
Defensive end, they've loaded up on defensive ends. So what are the program-changing positions you can get better at? And interior pressure is still valuable. You know, like the way I put it with Zane Durant is the way the offensive works is you've got 5 blockers on the offensive line. This is just basic football, right? 5 blockers on the offensive line, and for Penn State, you've got 4 pass rushers on the defensive line, which means somebody's going to get double teamed. So and this is really where you need a multitude of pass rushers, is you've got 2 threats on the outside. One of them gets double teamed, and then an interior player gets double teamed. That leaves a one-on-one for 2 other players. If you start pulling in extra blockers, you're keeping in tight ends, you're keeping in running backs, you're making it easier on the defense. They can deploy more resources in different ways. They can take away more stuff. So having a legitimate 1-2-3, that's where you get an elite pass rush. And a 3 technique is a huge part of that, because by alignment, he's on the side where you can get one-on-ones more often between the defensive end and the defensive tackle on that side. So it's a very basic thing, because the offense can do whatever they want. But that's why, from a run stuffing perspective, the other thing he said is you got to stop the run, right? Like, the first thing is to stop the run. Yep. And big, strong guys up the middle do help. It's not to the level that I think fans obsess over or that are focused on, because there are other ways to stop the run with numbers, with stunts and blitzes and things like that. But having a guy that can do it on his own is the way to unlock a lot of fun stuff for the defense. So that's kind of the theory behind, in college at least, a dominant player at any position where the talent gap can be so big, you can then make a difference. But as far as the hierarchy of things the defensive coordinator should focus on, absolutely. Corner, edge, and then, for your team building for the totality, quarterback is number 1, and left tackle, is 2 through 3, however you want to do that. Old Frog asks, given recent information about Nick Singleton's elite speed, is there now an onus on the OC to come up with some innovative ways to get him the ball in space? I would think that there have to be some ways to exploit a weapon like him. For example, do they throw him a ball in the flat? By the way, ask a lot of mailbag questions. Thanks for answering my questions on past shows. That's very kind of you to say. We love regulars, so thanks for having such good questions. Nate, do you want to take this one, seeing as I just had my monologue there at the end about important players?
Yeah, I mean, yes, right? Like, it is simply about what can Nick Singleton handle? What is he, right? Because you're balancing these 2 things, right? And I think that this has been said. I think Jaywan Sider said this. I think maybe James Franklin said this. Katron Allen came from a college offense in high school.
Yes, he did.
IMG is running a college offense.
Yep.
Nick Singleton, Governor Mifflin, shout out, is not, right? Yep. And so the development from that standpoint of just knowing the game, knowing all of it, I think it's a fair statement to say that Nick Singleton is, or was not, at least in the spring, up to that level of development that Katron
professionalism at the position. I mean, IMG is churning out semi-pros.
Correct.
They're very good at teaching these players. So let me give you an example of something that Nick Singleton is going to need to learn or has been learning. I'd say 60% of his runs, maybe I'm being conservative here, 60% of his runs are pitch plays in the Governor Mifflin offense. How many pitch plays do you see in college?
Yep.
How many times are they pulling in front, getting out in space, old school triple option offense? That is a useful skill once every 3 games.
Yep.
But, you've got to be able to read and to be able to address linebackers, make them wrong in the hole, and read and react. And all of those skills, I'm not saying he doesn't have any of them, but that is one thing that Kaytron Allen, when you watch him, you go, oh, this looks right. Because he's reading front to back on the run scheme. He's hitting front side holes. He's a receiver. That's another thing. I mean, Nick Singleton, Ryan and I were talking about this one time. He's like, well, Nick Singleton catches all of those pitches, so that he has good enough hands for now. But how does it? The most valuable receptions are ones that are downfield. So getting Nick Singleton the ball downfield, even if it's over the middle of the field and it's like 5 to 6 yards, is better than swing passes in the flat. A defense has one if you are taking that particular play, because they can rally and tackle. Most defenses are built on containing and limiting. So force them to be wrong and get downfield. That's where the rest of the offense has to be a threat, so that Nick Singleton, when you sneak him out 2 or 3 times a game, like Saquon Barkley on a wheel route or an angle route, then he's doing real damage, because you have to guard downfield. You can't shrink the entire operating area for the offense.
And if he's getting the ball at that part of the field and there's no safety help, that's it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's kind of the point with him is if you're a defense, you don't want him getting to the 3rd level, because that's the game is over. He's that fast. And he's that explosive.
Can I give you a specific example? Because I think Barkley is a good example of how Joe Moorhead did this right. So traditionally, I'm going to give you it was a play against Pitt where Saquon Barkley caught I think it was a touchdown, or it was like a 40-yard pass over the middle. So Pitt was running a cover 2 where you've got 2 deep safeties that are guarding the deep part of the field. The weak point traditionally in cover 2 is down the middle, right down the middle. And what defenses do is they drop their middle linebacker to an extra depth. He gets a little extra depth. This is something that I thought Ellis Brooks was really good at last year, was preventative defense of getting there, making sure he was in his spot and he was reading his place. So normally what you do is you run a receiver into that area, or a tight end running a skinny post over the middle. That's a way you attack cover 2. Saquon Barkley just blew by a linebacker and went up the middle, and it was over, because I think there was like a read option or a play action on it. So the running back immediately, or the linebacker immediately stepped up, and Barkley ran right behind him. So those are what I'm talking about when we're talking about valuable passes, where you're getting him into space where he can attack and he's not having to juke out a linebacker in a corner in the flat. Get him in one-on-one, create these situations where his speed is dictating it's a loss for the defense.